King Jesus, King Jesus. Okay. Hey, I wanted to respond to this opinion piece in the Telegraph, British newspaper, and it looks like a British Jewish newspaper. The author of the article, his name is Jewish, Shashank Joshi, and it says that Shashank Joshi is a senior research fellow of the Royal United Services Institute and a PhD candidate at Harvard University. Now, he obviously belongs to a think tank, and I think of think tanks as conspiracy tanks, conspiracy groups that develop Israeli policy, Zionist policy for application throughout the world. And so this piece, to me, is a Zionist piece designed to advance the cause of Zionism in the world. But let's go through the piece and see exactly what the gentleman is saying. It says, for Syria's opposition, there is a cruel irony in the fact that just over 1 year after the cancellation of planned missile strikes to punish Assad's chemical weapons use, American and Arab warplanes and missiles are finally in Syria's skies. Now, the premise of his first paragraph shows that it's a Zionist polemic designed to discredit Assad. Everyone knows that the chemical weapons use was used by the rebels in Syria and not Assad. And so he sets the stage to advance a lie. Second paragraph says, this time, of course, the target is not the regime itself, but the de facto capital of the city of Raqqa, eastern Syria, the subject of a fine Vice documentary a few months ago. It says, but will Assad be cheering on the assault on his enemies, and in the absence of ground force to step in, will the regime benefit? And what is the longer-term implication of these strikes? So the second paragraph shows you that in Israel is ISIS, the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, and they are servicing ISIS in Syria, and it is Israel that is behind this whole charade. It says, first, we should recognize that the Obama administration has pulled an impressive coalition out of the hat. Bahrain, Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates are all reported to have taken part in the strikes. The absence of NATO ally and regional heavyweight Turkey is extremely disappointing, though it is entirely possible that Ankara will join in after Erdogan meets with Obama in the UN General Assembly this week.
Well, the events in Syria have been closely followed in neighbouring Turkey, and they are increasingly creating tensions there. Ethnic Kurds living in the southeast of Turkey are accusing the government of, in effect, helping al-Qaeda in Syria by allowing militants to cross the border. Turkey denies that. J.R. Gold reports.
In the Turkish border town of Ceylanpınar, a convoy of buses moves in the dead of night. They're being escorted by Turkish military vehicles. In the dark, the identity of the passengers is hidden. Ethnic Kurds living here tell me these buses carry jihadi fighters to the Syrian front line, not to fight Syrian government forces, but to fight Kurdish militants. Turkey considers that Syria's Kurdish region supports the PKK, a Kurdish rebel group with which Turkey has long been in conflict on its own soil. Kurds here believe that Turkey is in effect helping al-Qaeda affiliated groups. Just behind this barbed wire is Ras al-Ain, a Syrian city. You could still hear gunshot and fighting going on just a few hundred meters away from here between jihadist group Al-Nusra and Kurdish fighters in Syria. And the people of both sides of the border are Kurdish. And if you talk to local people, they are accusing Turkish government of aiding jihadist group against the Kurds.
Clearly, there is animosity toward Kurds. Why is the Turkish government helping Al-Nusra gangs? Why do they take Al-Nusra fighters all the way to Ankara to the state hospitals, but they don't let injured Kurds even cross the border?
The border is 900 kilometers long and difficult to police, but the Turkish government denies that fighters are being allowed to cross. The Kurds' suspicion that the Turkish government is helping jihadis has increased tension in this region. Giorgol, BBC News, on the Turkish-Syrian border.
I doubt it. I doubt that Obama really needs to have Turkey involved. I don't think Obama needs Bahrain, Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, or the United Arab Emirates. As a matter of fact, they're closely allied with Israel, and it's really ironic that Obama is actually forcing them to strike their own ally. It says, given that these Arab nations have all been literally violently opposed to the Iran-backed Assad regime and have long supported Syria's rebels, their participation is symbolically crucial, particularly given that there is no UN resolution to authorize this extension of the war across borders. Securing a prominent high-level Arab role is a major diplomatic success, although the delay has likely come at some military cost. In fact, Obama is taking this action on his own, without the American Congress, or without the UN, or without NATO. And he is forcing the Arab allies of Israel to attack Israel's Secret Service. So that's the real irony here. And it doesn't advance Israel's cause. It says, second, the U.S. was fully aware that striking ISIL without striking the regime would potentially boost Assad. This is precisely what these Arab allies have been telling Washington, and it is why they have been so skeptical of airstrikes in the first place. The U.S. can point to 3 reasons why this may be less of a problem than assumed. Yeah, right. 1, the Assad regime simply isn't that strong around Raqqa, particularly after the fall of al-Tabqa airfield to the west of the city late last month. It isn't in a position to march in with tens of thousands of troops. They are in the position because Syria has allies. Syria has Iran, and Syria has Russia. So it does have allies that can put troops in Syria at the invitation of Assad after the U.S. bombing campaign is done, and those troops can occupy positions that are already secure, and the Syrian army could then march into Raqqa and take it over. It says it appears that the U.S. is also targeting other jihadist groups that may be in a position to take advantage. Some reports suggest that the particular cell of Al-Qaeda, Syria's affiliate, Al-Nusra, now a rival of ISIL, was also struck on Tuesday. This would be a significant broadening of the campaign, but it indicates that the U.S. will have an eye on who seeks to fill any vacuum left behind by ISIL, although it will still go down badly with much of the Syrian opposition who sees al-Nusra and others as legitimate allies. No one sees them as legitimate allies but the Jews and their Zionist friends. As I pointed out here yesterday, the U.S. has committed to training 5,000 Syrian rebels on Saudi Arabian soil over the next several months, and it is likely that the U.S. and its allies will have also been liaising with Syrian rebel groups on the ground around Raqqa, helping them to exploit airstrikes. U.S. or Arab special forces might even be on the ground, giving them a hand. This is just wishful thinking. The only people on the ground are the Jewish Zionist Israeli secret intelligence services, masquerading as Al-Nusra, masquerading as ISIL, and all the Free Syrian Army factions. So Obama knows this, and Obama knows that the Jews are behind 9/11, and they're also behind an earlier attack on the U.S. Navy ship, and he's going to get even with them. Third, while ISIL is vulnerable to these strikes in Raqqa, where it has built up visible and exposed infrastructure over more than a year of occupation, the fundamental challenge remains that the fighting is predominantly aerial war with a light footprint. The Syrian army has a footprint. In Iraq, U.S. forces have been able to rely on Kurdish militias, the Peshmerga, to exploit airstrikes and roll back ISIL. They hope they can repeat this with Iraqi security forces in due course, and perhaps also with Sunni tribes. But the Syrian rebels are viewed as simply too small in number, too weak, and too unreliable in their loyalties to replicate this role. They're going to all run home to Israel. This is what they're going to do when Obama finishes with them. What this means is that ISIL might be severely weakened around urban areas, and it might even face the destruction of strategic assets like its lucrative oil fields, but it could nevertheless remain entrenched within cities. The point to remember is that this wave of strikes is intended to weaken ISIL, ensuring that it faces a pincer movement from both Syria and Iraq, but not destroy it. Again, that's wishful thinking. The only place that ISIL can run is back into Israel, where they came out of in the first place. Fourth and finally, it appears that the U.S. decided to strike at ISIL without first obliterating the air defenses of the Assad regime. President Obama had hinted at this last week when he confided in a select group of American journalists. He contemplated the possibility that Mr. Assad might order his forces to fire at American planes entering Syria airspace. If he dared to do that, Mr. Obama said he would order American forces to wipe out Syria's air defense system, which he noted would be easier than striking ISIL because its locations are better known. He went on to say that such an action by Mr. Assad would lead to his overthrow, according to one account. That's fine and dandy, but that's not going to happen. Assad knows what he is doing. Obama knows what he is doing. Yes, an understanding. Yeah, and they're going to wipe out ISIL, and they're going to get even with Israel from the 9/11. They're going to get it even with Israel for all this heinous terrorism that they've been committing around the world. There is, therefore, an implicit bargain between Obama and Assad. There's none between Obama and Netanyahu. Assad stands down his defenses and gets to survive. Obama is likely relieved he has no need to wipe out this system because it included Russian advisors and operators, and U.S. bombs falling on Russian military personnel would probably go down badly in Moscow. But if this campaign stretches on for weeks or months, might Assad find it necessary to mount at least some symbolic resistance? The fact that Israel this morning shot down a Syrian fighter jet, the first such interception since 1989, suggests that the regime may be getting edgy. They've been edgy. They're the ones committing all this terror. They have no credibility. Oh, so they shot down a Syrian fighter jet. But they're going to get theirs for that. Meanwhile, in London, David Cameron might be relieved at the course of events. Although he had been eager to join strikes in Iraq, he realized that both parliamentary opposition and the legal conditions, the absence of a UN resolution covering Syria would have constrained his ability to do so in Syria. But last week, France ruled out strikes in Syria, setting a useful precedent for Britain and ensuring that it wouldn't be isolated. And now, with the war having crossed borders, with Arab states playing such a prominent role, it will be easier for the government to fashion an Iraq-only policy and sell it to the members of parliament. Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. Obama doesn't want Britain. Obama doesn't want France. Obama doesn't want NATO, because they're all Zionist entities controlled by Zionists, and Obama knows that, and he wants to get even with them for the treachery and that they committed against the United States for 9/11 and some other things. So this bullshit polemical Zionist opinion deserves no credibility. It's bullshit. And that's what I think.